She was just watering the front lawn when the HOA president, Karen, stormed across the street with her phone pressed tight against her ear. Her voice was sharp, dripping with fake authority. "Yes, officer. We've got a trespasser here. She's refusing to leave this property." My wife froze, confused, then realized Karen was pointing directly at her. A few neighbors peeked from behind curtains, whispering. Within minutes, a patrol car rolled up, sirens flashing. Karen smirked like she had already won, walking toward the officers as if she had summoned them personally. "She's not the homeowner," Karen lied, jabbing her finger at my wife. "She's breaking HOA rules by being here. I want her removed now." The officers turned to my wife, clearly uncomfortable. But before they could speak, Karen leaned in and hissed, "Don't even try to talk your way out of this. You people never follow the rules." My wife didn't flinch. She slowly set down the watering hose, wiped her hands, and looked straight at the cops. There was a long silence, the kind that makes everyone hold their breath. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out her badge, holding it up just high enough for everyone to see. The sun caught the silver, and both officers stiffened immediately. Karen's smile cracked. "You called the cops on the county sheriff," my wife said softly, almost amused. "Want to repeat that accusation?" The air shifted instantly. Neighbors gasped. Karen's face drained of color, but she still tried to laugh it off, waving her hand. This doesn't change anything. She's still breaking HOA rules." The officers didn't even look at her. They snapped to attention, eyes locked on my wife, waiting for her lead. The power balance flipped in an instant, and Karen knew she'd just made the worst mistake of her life. Karen's voice cracked as she kept rambling, desperate to save face. "This is private property. We have rules, and she can't just—" But the officers cut her off with a sharp, "Ma'am, step back." The command hit her like a slap, and for the first time, she stuttered into silence. The neighbors stepped out now, curious and whispering. Phones started recording. Karen could feel eyes burning into her back, but she still wouldn't give up. She pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her purse and waved it like it was holy law. "Here, this is the violation notice." She's been parking wrong, planting the wrong flowers, painting the fence without approval. She's a criminal in this neighborhood. My wife calmly took the paper from her hand. She scanned it for 2 seconds and then lifted her head, her eyes cold. "This isn't a legal document. It's a fake notice you typed up yourself. No HOA has the authority to remove a homeowner. And you, Karen," she let the silence hang for effect, "just filed a false police report." The officers shifted, now glaring at Karen. One spoke firmly. "That's a chargeable offense." Karen's jaw dropped. "What? No, she's twisting things. I'm the president here. I decide what happens in this neighborhood." That line made the crowd laugh. Someone muttered, "Not anymore, you don't." Karen's face turned red, and in her panic, she pointed at me, who had just stepped out onto the porch to see the chaos. "And him. He's the one behind all of this. Arrest him too." My wife crossed her arms, watching the meltdown like she had seen this 100 times before. "Careful, Karen," she said slowly. "Every word you speak is digging your own grave." And that's when one of the neighbors yelled out from the crowd, "Check the security cameras, everything's recorded." Karen froze, eyes darting around like a trapped animal. The cracks in her fake power were now wide open. The officers exchanged a quick look, then one of them nodded toward my porch. "Sir, do you have footage we can review?" Karen spun around, eyes wide. No, you don't need to see anything. I'm telling you, I'm the authority here." But her voice was trembling now, losing the sharpness it had just moments ago. I held up my phone and pressed play. On the screen, Karen was clearly visible, marching across the street, dialing 911 and pointing at my wife while yelling, "Arrest her! She's trespassing on this property." The video caught every word, every gesture, every smug look. Gasps rippled through the neighbors as the truth played out in real time. My wife didn't say a word. She didn't need to. The silence that followed the recording was louder than anything. Karen lunged forward, trying to snatch the phone from my hand, but one of the officers quickly stepped in and blocked her. "That's enough, ma'am. Back away. Do you people have any idea who I am?" Karen snapped, her voice breaking into a shrill pitch. "I run this neighborhood. I control what happens here. You're all going to regret this." The crowd booed. Someone shouted, "You don't control anything, Karen." Another added, "We pay dues for peace, not for your drama." The tide of the entire street had turned, and she knew it. My wife finally stepped forward, her badge still gleaming. "Karen, I could have you arrested right now for filing a false report. harassment, and attempted assault when you tried to grab my husband's phone. But she paused, letting the weight of her words hang. I'm giving you one chance to walk away quietly. Karen opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her hands shook, her face pale, yet I could see something dangerous flicker in her eyes. A stubbornness that wasn't going to die that easily. And that's when the twist hit. Her phone buzzed in her hand, and the name flashing on the screen was Officer Miller. She smirked suddenly, answering the call loud enough for everyone to hear. Yes, it's me. Bring the real cops. We've got a situation. The crowd gasped again. My wife's jaw tightened. Karen wasn't backing down. She was calling in backup. The street went silent as Karen ended the call, her smirk returning like she had just pulled her ace card. You think you've won? My people are on their way, she said, pacing in front of the officers like she was untouchable. You'll see what real authority looks like. The neighbors whispered nervously, unsure if she actually had connections or was bluffing again. My wife didn't flinch. She crossed her arms and stared at Karen, calm but sharp, the kind of stare that could cut through steel. Fake notices, fake power, and now fake cops. You really don't know when to stop, do you? Karen snapped back. You'll find out soon enough. I know people in this town. They listen to me, not you. Just then, the rumble of another police car echoed from down the street. Karen straightened her shoulders, her smug smile widening. There, she whispered. Now you'll see. The car pulled up fast, lights flashing, but instead of heading to Karen, the officer stepped out and walked straight to my wife. Sheriff, he greeted with respect, nodding his head. We got your message. Backup's here. The entire crowd gasped. Karen's smile collapsed instantly. Well, what? No. No, that's not possible. I called him. She stuttered. But the officer ignored her completely, waiting for instructions from my wife. My wife raised her chin slightly. Thank you, Miller. Glad you're here. Seems we've got someone impersonating authority and harassing homeowners. She motioned toward Karen. Sound familiar? Karen's face turned ghost white. You can't do this to me, she shouted, but her voice cracked, her power unraveling in front of everyone. The neighbors started recording again, some even cheering softly. The shift was complete. Karen, once the self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood, now stood cornered with no escape. And yet, she wasn't done. Her eyes narrowed, and in a desperate move, she screamed, Then I'll sue all of you. I'll take your homes, your money, everything. You'll regret ever crossing me. The officer at my wife's side leaned in and muttered, Want me to cuff her now? My wife's eyes stayed locked on Karen. Not yet, she said calmly. I want the whole neighborhood to see the truth first. Karen's threats hung in the air like poison, but the crowd wasn't buying it anymore. Phones stayed pointed at her. Neighbors whispering louder now, their anger finally breaking through fear. One man shouted, Sue us? With what money? You can't even fix your own fence. Laughter rippled through the group and Karen's face turned scarlet. My wife stepped closer, her voice steady but sharp. Karen, you've lied, you've filed a false police report, and you tried to intimidate this entire neighborhood. You've crossed every line. She lifted the fake notice again and held it up for everyone to see. This is fraud, and every single neighbor here is a witness. Karen lunged again, trying to grab the paper, but Officer Miller blocked her with a firm hand. That's enough, he barked. Karen recoiled, but her eyes darted wildly, looking for any way out. Then came the shocking moment. She spun toward one of the officers, pointing at him. You work for me. Don't you remember? I paid your department for extra patrols here. You're supposed to protect me. The officer's jaw tightened. Ma'am, I don't work for you. I work for the county, and you just admitted on record to trying to buy influence over law enforcement. Gasps shot through the crowd. A woman in the back yelled, She's been stealing HOA funds for that. Another voice added, That explains the missing money from last year's budget. The neighbors erupted in angry murmurs, pieces finally clicking together. Karen's empire was crumbling in seconds. My wife nodded slowly, her voice carrying over the noise. So it's not just harassment. It's embezzlement, fraud, attempted bribery, false reporting. She ticked off each word like a hammer hitting a nail. Then she looked straight into Karen's panicked eyes. You're finished. Karen shook her head violently, stepping back, her voice trembling but still defiant. No, you can't do this. I'll fight. I always win. This neighborhood belongs to me. That's when a neighbor from across the street, an elderly veteran with his cap still on, stepped forward and growled, "Not anymore." "It doesn't." The crowd cheered, the pressure building like a storm about to break. Karen's knees buckled slightly. For the first time, she looked genuinely scared. Karen stumbled backward as the crowd closed in tighter, phones raised, voices rising in anger. "Thieves don't run this neighborhood," someone yelled. Another shouted, "We're calling the county board about this." It was no longer just about my wife. It was the entire street turning against Karen. Officer Miller pulled out his notepad, his voice sharp. "Ma'am, you need to come with us for questioning." He stepped closer, but Karen threw her hands up wildly. "No, you can't arrest me. I'm the HOA president." My wife's tone was calm but cutting. "Being HOA president doesn't put you above the law. It just means you were trusted, and you betrayed that trust." Karen's chest heaved as she looked around, desperate for an ally. But all she saw were glares. Even her closest committee members kept their distance, whispering to each other like they'd already abandoned her. Then came the final humiliation. One of the neighbors, the quiet single mom from 3 houses down, stepped forward holding a folder. "Sheriff, I've been keeping records." Karen's been forging signatures on HOA documents for months. "Here's proof." The folder was handed directly to my wife, who flipped through the papers with a cold nod. "This seals it." She looked at Karen. "Not only have you harassed homeowners, you've stolen from them too." Karen's voice cracked into a scream. "No, that's lies. You're all conspiring against me. I built this neighborhood." The veteran barked back, "You didn't build anything. You just bullied people until you thought you owned it." The crowd cheered again, louder this time, their anger turning into energy. Some chanted, "Arrest her! Arrest her!" The chant grew stronger, echoing down the street. Karen's face twisted in rage, but beneath it the fear was clear. She knew there was no escape left, yet she still hissed through clenched teeth, "I'll burn this whole place down before I let you take it from me." And right then, the sound of another siren grew in the distance, this time not a patrol car, but an unmarked black SUV, the kind only higher authorities used. The crowd went silent. Even Karen froze, her eyes wide, as the SUV rolled to a stop in front of her driveway. The black SUV door opened and out stepped a stern-looking man in a suit, sunglasses glinting under the sun. He carried a thick folder and a badge that wasn't local police, it was federal. The crowd murmured, phones zooming in closer. Karen's fake confidence cracked instantly. The man walked straight to my wife, nodding in respect. "Sheriff, we've received multiple complaints about this HOA. Embezzlement, fraud, extortion. Looks like your neighbor here is at the center of it all." He handed her the folder. Inside were pages of documented evidence, bank transfers, forged contracts, even recorded calls. Karen staggered back, her voice trembling. No, this is a mistake. Those papers aren't real. They can't be real." The man in the suit didn't even look at her. "Karen Miller, you're under federal investigation for fraud, misappropriation of funds, and attempted bribery of law enforcement." The crowd gasped, then erupted into cheers. Karen clutched her head, screaming, "No! I'm the president! You can't do this to me!" My wife finally stepped forward, her voice calm but cutting like steel. "You're not a president. You're a criminal who thought rules didn't apply to her. But rules protect people like us, from people like you." Karen's knees buckled and she nearly fell to the ground as Officer Miller caught her arms and began cuffing her. The neighbors cheered louder, some recording, some clapping, some shouting, "Justice!" But just when it seemed over, Karen lifted her head and hissed, "You think you've won? You don't know who I really work for. This goes bigger than me." The crowd went silent again, chills running through the air. My wife's eyes narrowed, her instincts kicking in. She leaned closer to Karen. "Then you'd better start talking. Because if you've dragged this neighborhood into something bigger, I'll drag the truth out into the light." Karen only smirked through her tears, whispering, "You'll never stop it." The SUV doors slammed, and she was taken away, but her words left an uneasy weight behind. "Do you want me to finish with Section 8 and wrap up the story?" The crowd slowly began to settle as the SUV pulled away with Karen inside, her screams fading into the distance. Neighbors stood together in shock, whispering about the chaos that had unfolded on their quiet street. Some were still recording, others hugging, relief washing over them that her reign of terror was finally over. My wife lowered her badge, letting out a slow breath. "It's done," she said quietly. But I could see in her eyes it wasn't truly done. Karen's final words still hung in the air like smoke. The elderly veteran stepped closer.
Sheriff.
Thank you. We've been living under her shadow for too long. You gave us our neighborhood back. Others echoed his gratitude, voices thick with emotion. Even kids peeked out from behind their parents, smiling shyly, free of the fear Karen's constant harassment had caused. My wife gave a small nod. This neighborhood belongs to you, not to a dictator. Remember that. She handed the forged notices and evidence folder to Officer Miller. Get this to the district attorney. I'll make sure every one of her victims gets their say. As the officers left, the neighbors began pulling together, talking about forming a new board, one that was fair, transparent, and accountable. For the first time in years, there was hope on the street instead of fear. I slipped my arm around my wife and whispered, "You handled that better than anyone else could have." She gave a tired smile. It's my job to protect people. Doesn't matter if it's the county or our own front yard. The sun was setting now, casting a warm glow across the homes Karen once claimed to control. Kids played in the yards, laughter echoing where shouting once reigned. The air felt lighter, cleaner, as though the whole street had been freed. And as we walked back inside, my wife glanced over her shoulder one last time. She thought power came from control. But real power, she tapped her badge gently, comes from justice. For the first time in a long while, the neighborhood truly felt like home again.